Hey guys, welcome to this episode, which I should have put a sensitivity disclaimer up top. I am Ken, and as you can tell from the title, we are going to talk about the loss of my daughter, Tammy, who passed away a year ago today. This is her workstation that she would sit at when we'd come up to Malibu. I have a couple of guitar workstations here and there, but this is the one she would sit at, and she had a couple of tasks that she would do here, and she loved to be here. You all have seen the pictures of her holding this mandolin, which used to hang up over there on the rafters, and we're getting this together. But she would sit here and we would do fret jobs, meaning we would pull the frets out of an instrument, and as part of that process, these channels have a little bit of splinter that comes up, and she would take this tool here, which is a blank for an old stand-up bass bow, and she could put her fingers in here like this, and then when the frets would come up, they splinter right here. So she would sit here and do this, and it was funny, she was very serious about her jobs, and if somebody started to talk to her, she would look at them and say this, which means work. But I want to do the intro from the spot she sat at. She's got her owl stickers here, and let me get this put up so we know. That mandolin is from 1915, so we want to be careful with it. But she had her sticker book here, and it had an owl on it. So the guitar I'm working on right now has plenty of Tam memories to it. She would carry around seed pods from a mesquite tree, and this piece of wood there is from that tree, and then of course we got the owl. So fond memories of you today, Tammy. Now this is going to be a little difficult, as you can imagine, but when we're talking about the loss of a child, I think a couple things come into play. A special needs child, especially CdLS. There is a lot of speculation about the Cornelia de Lange Syndrome. Not a lot is known. Doctors that have any level of expertise with it are really hard to find. And then there's such a in addition to it being rare, there's a diversity of symptoms and effects between the kids, where some only live a couple months, some live into their 40s, which is really rare, and then you've got all these things. And I think one of the things I've learned is that there's some commonalities in appearance. You might have microcephaly, you might have placement of the thumbs, small fingers, that type of thing. Facial features, neurological related mannerisms and the like. But I think that what I'm learning the most is there are equally, important things going on inside that we don't see and know a lot about. And in order to find out those things, you have to go through a couple processes that aren't pleasant. And I'm going to talk about that today. So I'm going to get settled in at a chair that's not meant for a 4-year-old, and I'm going to talk today about the loss of a child and some of the phases I've gone through. So I keep myself on track. I'm going to talk about why, what if, what now, and what's next. Okay, before we get rolling here, I want to tell you that this channel is relatively new in the last 6 months or so. There's an introductory episode that I'm going to give you a link to up there, and as I add videos, I will put them in order, and they're kind of meant to take a person that's just discovering this and get them ready for some things that they're going to experience as a parent, a caregiver, an education rights holder, and that type of thing. But the intro episode, if you care to watch that, is going to tell you a lot about Tammy and about our life and what I do and how that all ties up together. So again, this pointer is is a fixture of this channel and my guitar channel. But anyway, so let's start off with why. Now, as far as the topic why goes, I think there's two things I want to talk about. One of them can be very emotional and spiritual. The other one can be, okay, here's what's going on, here's how it happened, here's what we tried to do, and ultimately this is what caused it. So I think this is going to be useful for other people. Remember, this is like, I'm not telling a story, I'm telling my experience as I perceive it. There's no way that you should look at what I say and think, okay, I need to feel that, or you know what, he's right, or I'm not here to trigger anything. I'm here to share an experience with you that may help you, it may cause you to think, it may actually help you to sit down for a minute and go, you know what, I don't need to feel inadequate because I'm actually doing a pretty good job. So let's start off with the obvious why. Why me? How could this have happened to me? All right, I've had a few experiences with some people in my life who have lost a child. And I don't want to get into names. Again, I don't want to analyze anything. I'm the last one that should be analyzing anything. But I have heard this attitude of, why would God do this to me? Meaning, take my child from me, give my child an illness. This question can be asked from day one all the way to the loss of a child. And here's what I would tell you. I hate to be factual, but worldwide, 1 to 2 people die every second. In the United States, there's about 8,400 people that die every day. Worldwide, there's about 7,200 that die every hour. And so death is something that's all around us. And as much as it happens, there's somebody dealing with a death in your social group, maybe at work, in the church, in the activities, somebody at school. Death surrounds us, and I don't think that looking at it like somehow God has chosen you, if you're spiritual at all, to say, yeah, today's your unlucky day, I'm picking your kid. If I am feeling that way, number one, I realize, okay, maybe I haven't had enough enjoyment out of the experience. Maybe it is 24/7, 365 caregiving, feeding, medical stuff, therapies. I mean, I'm going to go into a little bit here what my life looked like on the what if part, but is it possible that you never really stopped for a minute and gave yourself some credit to say, you know what, I'm a pretty dedicated person. I am dedicated to the comfort of this child, and I have pretty much abandoned a lot of things about my life to make sure that this child is okay. And if you get the right look at that, it kind of is going to fix you and repair you and make you realize, without you, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of kids out there who don't have anyone. You know, my world of the school board, I see foster kids. I see kids being moved around. I see kids who maybe they're disabled and don't understand cognitively that they're being moved around, or, you know, their life is not certainly on a track that most of us enjoyed as a youth. We, you know, grew up, we found work, we have a family, all those kinds of things. There's kids that never have that. And then there are people who just decide, I need to be the hero here. So if the story ends, take a minute and think, what was my role in being selfless, being focused, and being determined? And if you can't get there on your own, get some help. Remember, the Cornelia de Lange Foundation has a great network. There's charts that will tell you, you know, what to look out for if there are certain diagnoses of certain problems, educational stuff, and bereavement. I mean, the foundation has been incredible, both the United States Foundation and the Canadian Foundation. So if you're feeling like, and especially if you're transmitting out to everyone around you, there may be other kids who may feel like I was second place to a special needs child in the family. All that kind of stuff, if it's not addressed, builds up into bigger life problems, and people carry around a silent burden that might be undermining them and hurting them, and stopping them from taking a minute to realize I was a significant part of a life that had a challenge, and that builds character and it's meaningful. So let's talk about the reality of why. Why did Tam pass away? Well, on the death certificate, it says underlying cause, Cornelia de Lange Syndrome. I think that's kind of the equivalent of, on my death certificate, it might say human being addiction to guitars or anything. Cornelia de Lange is not a reason to die. And so let's get that out of the way. Remember, I don't know where half of this is coming from. Just go with me here. But Tam started having a problem in 2003. There was a hospitalization. It seemed like she was constipated and wasn't processing food, and it was manifesting in this frothy, saliva, bubbly, clear liquid coming up, and she would spit it up, and she would try to drink water, and it just seemed to worsen it. And so we ended up in the hospital. We took her to the emergency room, and there's so much on the surface with Cornelia de Lange. Okay, there's always gastro problems, so right away that's a quick jump to, okay, is the child constipated? Can we do this, the typical stuff for that? Can we gavage the stuff? Gavage is putting in suctioning, so you put a tube down the nose. Some of the kids have gastro tubes, feeding tubes, tubes that will allow pressure to be released is all part of it. But anyway, we'd not had challenges in that area with Tam. She could eat. Of course, at the very beginning, when she was very small, people would say, would you just feed your baby, before they knew what it was. But Tam's issues were motor skills. She had some orthopedic issues. There were a couple seizures early, so we had neurology. We definitely had cognitive issues and communication challenges. So that's where our focus was. So that hospital stay came and went. And then picking up significantly in April of 2024, there was a series of similar events where she would just start spitting up this froth. The one thing I want to tell you is that it didn't seem to have food particles or gastric contents. You can smell what that is, you know what that is. And so that struck me as kind of funny. We're not throwing up, it's coming from somewhere here or whatever. It's like a physical obstruction of types. And these visits will be characterized by go into the hospital, sit in the emergency room. You don't triage quickly with this type of thing. It did help to have all of our doctors at that hospital, that facility. We had the neurologist, we had the orthopedic surgeon, we had the ophthalmologist, we tried to get dentistry there. Gastro person was there. So what I really thought was important is you would see that when she came in, you know, CdLS parents, you go in, they need to cycle through, you got a patient every 15 minutes in the first half hour of your visit is trying to explain what Cornelia de Lange is. We never seem to quite get to the basics of 1, 2, 3. That's been my experience. Anyway, so we tried to have a collective of everybody where they could just immediately access the charts and say, okay, 1 + 2 = 3 and whatever. I think one of the most disappointing things was I found out after she passed away and wanted to share the autopsy results that one of the best geneticists in the world is in LA and is at the same hospital, and it just strikes me odd that we would never bring that person into the mix to say, okay, we're having this, what have you seen before? That would have been really nice. I don't want to go down that path. Anyway, so increasing episodes of spitting the stuff up, going into the hospital, and in fact it became routine. It was almost like we don't know what this is. Handy tip, if you're going into the emergency room and you are expecting that someone's going to diagnose a problem, set a care plan, don't expect that. They're going to constantly say this is a clinical issue, it needs to be addressed outside of here. So they're processing people who are coming in with serious health issues. They're not investigating things and tying up beds on theoretics. That sounds really cold, but that is a fact. Now, meanwhile, we had all these things going on. Someone said, check an ear, nose, and throat specialist. That might be histamines or something that happens in the throat when your natural reaction, when you're choking. We'd had barium studies in the past, swallow studies, all those kinds of things. And so there were constant between that first episode in April of 2003, there was a constant going to see specialists and clinics and all that type of thing. You CdLS parents know what that's like. But there was never pinpointed as to what is going on. So between April 2024 and October 2024, there were probably 4 different visits to the hospital that involved being admitted, putting a tube, vacuuming contents of stomach out, giving the digestive tract a break. On one of those visits, they said we may have to go in and open her up and look for a number of blockages or a volvulus twisting of the stomach or something like that. That never had to happen. But at the end of the day, let's just say these incidents were increasing. They would stabilize her, pull everything out, give her a soft diet, let everything catch up. And no doubt the next day or the day after there would be a repeat of the episode. And it got so routine. I remember one surgeon who had been there on the weekend on at least one of these visits when we brought her in the ambulance in severe duress. She had said, oh, you guys are here again? Well, the minute that Tam came in for the last time, there was no quippy comment like that. It was like, oh, this is serious. So Tam was admitted just before Halloween. I've got a picture of her with a hospital pumpkin shirt on, and she wasn't happy. She was released a couple days after Halloween. She came home. She wanted to go to school. She loved school. And I got stuff going through my head that I'll get to in a few minutes. But the next day after that, she did go to school. She came home, and about 8 that night, this started. It wasn't subsiding by the time I woke up. She had care during the time I woke up early in the morning. Stuff was being packed for another trip to the hospital. We got in the car. LA traffic was terrible. Again, we'd been through this so many times, it was never represented as a serious call to ambulance situation. It's just, let's get her over there. We'll continue with the clinical stuff. So traffic was terrible. About a quarter of the way in on the trip, Tam was becoming very agitated, which wasn't like her. She had her bucket that she wanted to throw it, and then she signed that she needed to go to the restroom. I stopped at a restaurant, took her in, and got back on the road. And about 5 miles down the road, now this is today's Thursday, so a year ago would have been Wednesday. This would have been Wednesday, 5 and 405, just past there on the 5 lanes of LA traffic first thing in the morning. And I look over and she wasn't responsive. I touched her, she wasn't responsive. I whipped over 5 lanes of traffic, pulled into a parking lot there at the end of the ramp, and I had been taught at work they are serious about the CPR lessons. Les Bronte, I love you. The person's name I just said, it was a mayor, city council member, wonderful person, no ego, volunteered to teach everybody CPR for years. That's where I learned, and Tam was gone. I put her on her blanket, and I got her back. And she sat up for a second. The 911 operator said, "Sit her up." And she opened her eyes and she looked at me, and I knew she was there. And then the eyes closed. The ambulance guys got there. I went and seen them in Burbank. Guys, you guys are the best. Thank you. And there's been a lot of healing in the last year of me going to people and having them understand what you do on a daily basis makes a difference, whether the outcome is great or not. But we got into the hospital, and for the next 7 hours, sometimes there were 30 people in the room, and they did everything they could. There was massive transfusions going on, and it got to a point where the doctor that was running this, I realized back then I actually thought she was going to make it. And this person was just, the sensors were going on. This is the person you'd want to run an emergency situation. And finally he turned and walked towards me and he said, "We need to talk." And then there was a serious talk about that things were actually getting worse, and it was time. So it took almost 7 months to get the autopsy. My idea about the autopsy was to kind of help other people, because I have heard of people talking about the same symptoms. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, what I'm about to tell you means absolutely nothing to you other than maybe think about it, maybe communicate it, because you already know the doctors don't typically know what this is. And then on top of that, I've experienced this in the school realm. You look at some of these kids and there's this unspoken of what is the effort going to result in. But when it's your kid, I can give you a million reasons. And in fact, part of the reason I sit on a school board is because if it's somebody else's kid, I can give you the same million reasons. But anyway, the death certificate said, Cornelia de Lange, gastric duplicative cyst. They didn't find that until the ambulance brought her in, and they had to, we need to go in here and find out what's going on right now. And that's what they found. And so check out what that is, and you'll find out they're very difficult to diagnose and see. But what had happened is, and I'd raised the concern about this, we see what the kids have on the outside, but we don't see what's going on the inside, and sometimes there are malformations. There are some malformations that were there, some things that were missing. If there's a cavity that is supposed to have stuff in there and it's not, and there's room, your stomach can pivot. On one of the visits, they put a tube in to help hold the stomach to the lining of the wall, and hope that would help stabilize it, because if your stomach is moving around, it can develop a volvulus, meaning it twists and seals itself off. And if that happens too many times, it's like taking a piece of paper and folding it back and forth, and then it tears on the line. And her stomach had perforated, sent out everything out into the body, created sepsis. I didn't realize it back then, but you were basically talking about the vascular system, the neurological system being flooded with caustic materials. And had she survived, her quality of life would have been, I don't know. Let's just stop there. But her stomach had torn open, and the doctor was trying to transfuse everything and basically replace all of it as quickly as possible. But in the end, things started to swell and react, and you ended up with something called compartment syndrome, and it was not going to get any better. So the autopsy revealed that there were a couple things missing in her anatomy that hadn't been figured out, and that her pancreas was actually necrotic. So I think the combination equals everybody is figuring out now that when she would eat, her pancreas through the digestive system was releasing toxins into her digestive system, and that's probably what's going on. So sorry if something triggers what you're thinking in there. Go talk to the doctor. Call the foundation. Get help from the foundation, so you're not walking in to a doctor's office that has no idea what you're talking about. Just try to figure out how to frame it to the point where you can communicate with the doctor. But back to the question I asked you, why me? Well, it wasn't me, it was my daughter. It was happening to my daughter. And when I look at what she went through, the pain that was probably there had to have been there, the frustration, not be able to communicate. Yeah, I'm forgetting about how I feel now. I'm just kind of, let's go to the next topic. What if? That's a rough one. What if? So I think you figured out that I was going into the hospital. It was going to be another trip to the hospital. She would be stabilized, we'd be in the room, I'd be coming from work a few miles away, spelling everyone and doing my turn. And then, so I didn't know that when I walked home that day, or I came home with Tam, and then came home from work the next evening, that a little over 24 hours later, Tam would not come home, ever, never. And all the places Tam had been with me, like the workstation over there. This place is incredible, by the way, because you will see musicians and people from the 70s and 80s who were on the radio. You've heard their song a million times. The guy that played guitar on this song will be sitting right over there, standing here talking to me, wondering what this guitar that I'm working on is. Because, by the way, this is going to somebody on Saturday. Tammy. So you start thinking, what if? What if I had not decided that the school district that I sit on the board should not be engaged in charter school businesses that allow and open the door to people to steal $80 million worth of educational tax fund to put in their pocket while robbing the money from people like Tam and other people who do not have her condition. I will tell you something while we're here. You take people like Tam and you take the most gifted people, all of them are underserved. You have our entire population, this COVID thing, keep everybody at home. Kids need social growth. Kids build community by being around people like Tam, by being tolerant, by being helpful, by finding identity and helping people like Tam, by being empathetic, by being understanding. So, looking back 9 years into it, about 20 meetings a year, some of them very long. Believe me, the stuff I was engaged in, there were people that did not want that personal wealth building to go away. I was routinely trashed in a newspaper. So I'm not at home on Thursday nights, and then you open it up, people are saying all kinds of things. Did I get into your money, or what happened there? You'll see Tam someday. You'll know. Sorry about that, I'm not sorry. But what if I would have just let it be someone else's problem? I could have been home the equivalent of 250 days. The hours I put in. Some of those hours were terrible. Things happen in school districts with things. And it is in closed session, and you have to make decisions based on law. There was rooms full of people yelling at me. And I can't say anything. Isn't it funny that sometimes you have to maintain confidentiality for some people? Being villainized. What if I had cared enough about my child to stay home with her and sit on the couch? What if I was smart enough to take a job that I didn't have to spend at least 3 hours a day, every day, for 24 years on the road? What if I had taken a lesser job? What if I had not worked on guitars? What if I would have got inside the house? What if I would have sat on the couch and read books to Tam all these days and hours and weeks and years of time? I can't get this back. What if? Someone gave me a book called The Grieving Brain. I'm not prone to read things like that with titles like that, but whatever. I opened it up, and within it, it said this, that some of the most important, I'll try to give you a link to it down below, and maybe a quote when I can get to the editing of that. It said that we tend as human beings to pick out the people that are closest to us, the ones that make us feel comfortable. So in other words, if you have a normal situation, regardless of what you got going on at work, if you got political pressure, whatever's going on at the school board, whatever's going on in your personal life, you pull up to your home. Unless you got somebody volatile where you're wondering, what are they going to be upset about now, that kind of thing, just throw all that away. But you've got a basically stable, most days environment where you walk in and you feel safe and you're happy to be there. And if you think about the people that are there, you're not doting over them 24 hours a day. You're not, hey, how's it going? You know, hyper focused on them, because if you do that, sometimes people are, okay, stalker, can I watch my show here or what? But we typically see those people psychologically, subconsciously as pillars in our life. They're there, they're good, they're safe, I can depend on them not to create a lot of drama, and I am glad that they're here because they are an indicator of your safety at home with your family or that group of friends you have. So, am I saying you never notice them? Not really, but what's likely to happen is you are likely to become accustomed to being there, so your thought that you're safe, that you're in a wholesome environment, that there's an away for you where you want to be that makes everything that goes with making a living and dealing with other people tolerable, and then suddenly, boom, that person is gone and they're not coming back. And what that does is it rattles your belief that your safety is safe, okay? So I want you to think about that. Here's what I would like you to do if you've ever felt this way. Flip it around. Ask yourself, by the way, there's nothing wrong with having a moment where you're like, you know what, I feel pretty good about that. I did the right thing. It's not about ego. It's not about comparison. There was a time in my world when I was a kid where it was okay to feel proud. I caught the ball. I got an A. I worked very hard. I don't know what's happening now, because if I say, hey, I think I'm the best that there is at some obtuse thing that I made up that no one else does, and there's only one person competing with me, and that's me, so I'm great. Yeah, I'm not talking about that. But ask yourself, what if I had been completely checked out? What if I was in complete denial? I've talked about stuff like this in the introduction episode. What if I'd done nothing? What if I'd hid in alcoholism? What if I just expected that someone else was going to take care of it and they did nothing? So take that part of it and ask yourself, what if I extracted myself from that part of it, the everyday stuff that you do that's a necessity of life, and you don't complain incessantly and make everybody feel guilty because you have to go to work or you have to drive in LA traffic, or you're the one that's goofy enough to say, nobody is going to steal $80 million while I sit silently and let 4 other people open the door to it. This is not happening. There's a lot of what ifs in life. What if right now you just said, there's some people that I need to go talk to and tell them a little bit about what they've done for me, and let them know that it's a bad what if they hadn't paid attention to me and give me the boot that I needed, or the encouraging word. So let's kind of take that what if and put it on the shelf. If you got some serious what ifs, go talk to somebody about it. Your life can get sidetracked from what is by hiding in what ifs. This comes around when you're just getting over the initial shock, like when you're waking up in the morning and you're like, this is a bad dream, and you're running into the room and they're not there, and you realize this is not going away, and there's such a big huge piece of me missing that I don't have what it takes to pull myself out of it and do what I need to do. Now, some people will say things like, I wish I had the luxury of being able to take some time off, or I wish I had the luxury to mourn because I've got this and this going on and all these other people depend on me, and if I don't go to work, we have no insurance, we have this. And then the worst part about it is you may suffer a loss like this, and then all of a sudden you're getting bills for it, and you don't even have the kids sitting there as a reward. So life keeps going, and all this stuff is normal, but watch verbalizing it to people who are impressionable. You have to ask yourself, do most siblings grow up with a child that deservedly needs 24/7 care? How do they feel about that? Do you ever talk to them about it? Do you ever tell them, hey, you know what? I really appreciate the fact that you're mature enough and that you're selfless enough, not selfish, selfless enough to act out, because you being the person you are is really the most important part about me being dedicated to the care of your sister, who, by the way, loves you very much. So be really careful about taking your feelings of inadequacy and dumping them on everybody else because some other people in the family, they may not be able to deal with this. Like, they literally cannot go into the bedroom of the person that has passed away. They can't handle their things. They can't look at this thing. It is just takes them back. Especially, you're going to find this on the primary caregiver. It's like, I have dedicated my whole life to this, and the outcome has robbed me of any level of happiness. So again, we're going backwards into what if and why me. So dudes, especially dudes, don't be the tough guy. It's okay to cry, all that. You know, I come out of Texas oil fields. You ain't gonna get any Hallmark cards from me, but find a way to step outside and be thankful that you can keep it together for others, even if you're dying inside. What's next is very difficult to figure out if you're allowing yourself to be emptied out on a daily basis when you're the one that's got control of the faucet. The quicker you can get everybody back to feeling safe and normal and respectful for the person that has passed away, where you're sitting around painfully sharing stories about what they were like, their mannerisms, and all that kind of stuff, the quicker everybody's going to heal. And it's okay to make sure that you're not in first place when it comes to the attention you need. Give the attention to the people that are less capable of dealing with the pain. Get to work, do your thing, and if you can, show people at your job what it's like to deal with a loss gracefully. While we're here, there's been people around me that have had to deal with me on any number of levels. My life is fairly complex. I've got work, I've got the school board, and I've got some other stuff going on. And I sent out a post today that basically said, hey, everybody, there's been 1,000 people involved in making sure I'm okay, one look, one word, one hug at a time, and I appreciate you people. So let's get on to the final topic. What now? What now? There's a big chunk of my life missing. It's a year later. I can't make a career out of what I've been doing without even knowing it for the last year. It's time to move on. When will this ever stop? How do I make myself feel better? What now? Well, in the next couple of days, what now is this mandolin that used to hang up there and be all broken up. It's got its tuners on it, it's got its binding on it. It's still got all its scratches and imperfections. But I got a picture of Tam holding this. And I'm going to put this in a shadow box when it's done, because I don't even play instruments. I'm going to find somebody to play it. I think I'll get one of those cards that, you know, when you're in deep trouble with your mother-in-law and you can record nice things in it. I think I'll get one of those and put it on the outside of the shadow box, and Tam's picture will be here. And it would have been nice to hear her play this, but that way I can hang it up and I can be happy and see this and be grateful that she could immediately recognize when she saw this at home that it came from Fred. The ideas that I had about how difficult her life would be. I'm going to take a few minutes and think about specific examples like that. That's what's now for me with this. Guys, the guitar thing has so blown up. If you go into AI and say, who is my name? It gets into my forestry policies, it gets into my school board work, especially with charters, what I tend to stand for, what my basic governance, how I represent the public that voted for me. The guitars, it goes off into a whole world of it. And so I think I'm gonna talk about and think about a little bit about that first guitar I made, so someone could realize Tammy's rocking back and forth. She understands beat. She doesn't respond well to your tests. She's not hearing well. The brain takes a little bit. Don't make excuses for her, but give her a little room where she can feel like she's part of it. I did an episode about communications, contextual versus conceptual, meaning I need to learn a vocabulary so you know when I need to go to the bathroom. If you're my one-on-one, I need to eat, I'm not comfortable. Or, hey, this was in Fred's shop and I know it and I recognized it and I can say Fred and I know Fred and I like Fred. Yeah, stuff like that. Okay, through the CdLS community, I've seen there's a couple of kids out there that are getting AAC devices. That's very exciting for me. I know what happened with Tam ultimately, and I know that the biggest thing that happened because of her AAC device was she brought me a song that she found called Sun Sinking Low by Margaret Garrett. I built her a guitar. I think I'll give you the little clip she made about the guitar she got from us and Tam. But little did I know that, 5 or 6 years later, Tam would be gone. So indeed the sun was sinking low. But I'm going to continue to talk about those kinds of things and help people not to be afraid to advocate for something besides my kid is going to be able to say A, B, C, D by the end of first grade. And that being the focus, when there's conceptual and contextual communication, I've given you a lesson on that, and Tam's OT has also talked to you on this channel. But to get into the world in which these kids are recognized as being something rather than contextual, I need to go to the bathroom, I need to eat, my stomach hurts, and into a world of there's somebody in here, my name is Tam, I got a big message to send out there to the world and I can't do it. So there's going to be all these artists. If you get on AI and look at what it says about her, it opens up a world. Tam is literally known, her story is known, and I built one guitar and she did the rest. I just kept doing it. So much for that. What if I hadn't been in the garage so much? What if I wouldn't have brought Tam to sit at this table over here and some of the world's finest musicians walk in here and say, hey, Tam, what's going on? What if Fred still wasn't talking to her every day when he could feel her around and she can hear his voice from Earth? Let's talk about some of what if that. So in the near future, like I said, I'm taking this to Irvine to the family gathering. Imagine, CdLS kids, they have some of the mannerisms, the same thing. Imagine the joy I'm going to feel because I get to go down there and see some kids and know that they're like Tam in a way, and they're going to give me a couple minutes of Tammy that I wouldn't get any other way. That's worth a junky old guitar, isn't it? Or maybe just have this girl see it and play it. And I'll get to see a movie like that when I need it the most. Isn't that great? A year ago right now, there were some terrible, terrible things going on. And I saw up to 30 people in a room doing everything they possibly could to make sure that Tam made it home that day. And I don't know what it's like to be one of those people. I couldn't do that. So when you find that you're not able to do something, find someone that can. Reach out to the foundation. Find out what the future is going to look like. What if you contact the foundation? What if you tell somebody I'm not having the best day? Why? You want to give your child the best life. And you're going to do that anyway. It's just sometimes having that little bit of extra knowledge will help. Is going to help you guys. So I'm going to take off the clown suit. I'm going to put on my work clothes and I'm going to get on this guitar over here. This is kind of funny. This is an old Stella made in the 60s, little parlor guitar that somebody would have by the fireplace in the cabin, and somebody wanted it fixed. And of course, I'm the one that could put the neck and fix cracks and stuff. And of course, there was a junky one like it in Tam's room that had just the parts I needed. So I'm going to do that, guys. Thanks for being there today. I am getting messages literally from all over the world. Thank you, everybody. And it made today a lot easier.